The door slammed open with a force that rattled the pictures on the walls, and there stood my father, his face drained of all color as he stared at Ryan and me pulling apart from kiss that had felt like the most natural thing in the world just seconds earlier. In that frozen moment, years of carefully constructed lies and hidden truths exploded into the open, and I knew my life would never be the same. "Ethan, what the hell is this?" My father's voice cracked like thunder in the small Chicago apartment. Ryan stepped back quickly, but it was too late. The kiss we had shared just moments before, born from a quiet evening after a long week at the marketing firm where we both worked, had been our undoing. I felt my stomach drop as my father's eyes moved from me to Ryan and back again, the realization sinking in with devastating clarity. "Dad, I can explain," I started, but the words fell hollow even as I said them. "How do you explain a love you've hidden for 3 years? How do you tell the man who raised you, who coached your little league games back in our small Indiana town and bragged about your promotion to senior designer, that everything he thought he knew about his son was only half the story?" My hands trembled as I reached for the remote to mute the low hum of the TV, the evening news suddenly irrelevant. My father didn't wait for explanations. "Get him out of here. Now." The command was cold, final. Ryan looked at me with those steady blue eyes that had always grounded me during late-night project deadlines and family holidays spent pretending we were just roommates. I could see the pain there, too, the same quiet fear we had both carried since the day we met at the company picnic 3 years ago. We had been so careful. Stolen weekends at Ryan's place across town, private dinners at little Italian spots where no one knew us, never public displays in our conservative suburb. But tonight, with the family dinner canceled last minute because my mom's flight was delayed, we had let our guard down for just 5 minutes. As Ryan gathered his coat from the hook by the door, my mind raced through the consequences. My mother would be next, probably calling from the airport any minute. My younger sister, still in college back home, who idolized me as the big brother who always had it together. The family business my father expected me to eventually take over, the hardware store chain that had been in our name for 2 generations. All of it hinged on this moment. Ryan squeezed my shoulder once before slipping out, whispering, "I'm here, Ethan. Call me when you can." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the apartment echoing with silence except for my father's heavy breathing. The confrontation intensified as soon as Ryan was gone. My father paced the living room, his work boots leaving faint marks on the hardwood I had just polished that morning. "I raised you better than this, Ethan. This is not who we are, not our family." The words cut deep, echoing every doubt I had buried during late nights when guilt kept me awake after another weekend visit home, where I smiled through questions about girlfriends and settling down. I loved my family fiercely. They had sacrificed everything for my education, driving 6 hours each way for my college graduation, helping with the down payment on this apartment when I landed the job in Chicago. But I also loved Ryan, whose gentle humor and unwavering support had made me feel seen for the first time in my life. He told me about the family trip he had planned for next month, the cabin in Indiana where we always went fishing. "Your mother has been talking about grandkids, Ethan. What am I supposed to tell her now?" His voice broke for the first time, and I saw the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the one who cried at my high school graduation. But the love I felt for Ryan wasn't something I could turn off like a switch. It had grown slowly, from shared laughs over bad coffee in the office break room to late-night talks about dreams and fears. Ryan had been the one who encouraged me to apply for the promotion, the one who held me when my first big project failed. Hiding that had been exhausting, but necessary, or so I thought. The argument stretched into the night, the clock ticking past midnight as my father sat on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped tightly. He issued the ultimatum before leaving to catch his own delayed flight. "1 week to fix this, son. Break it off, see a counselor, whatever it takes. Or you're on your own. No more financial safety net, no family gatherings, possibly even being cut from the will. Choose, us or that." The door slammed again as he left, and I sank onto the couch, the apartment suddenly too quiet. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "You okay? I'm here no matter what." Tears stung my eyes as the weight settled in my chest. family or love. The choice no one should have to make. But deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe this shattering was the beginning of something real. I spent the next hour staring at the ceiling, replaying every family dinner where I had dodged questions about dating. My mom's hopeful smile when she asked if I had met anyone nice. My dad's proud slap on the back when I told him about the new account I landed at work. All of it built on a foundation of half-truths. Ryan and I had met at the company picnic, the one where the whole team played softball, and I struck out spectacularly. He had been a new history teacher volunteering to coach the kids' side, laughing when I missed the ball. We started talking over burgers, discovered we both loved old movies and hated small talk. It took months before we admitted there was more. A coffee turned into dinner, then a walk along the lake where our hands brushed and neither pulled away. 3 years of stolen moments, of building a life together in secret while I smiled through Sunday calls home. By the time the sun rose, I was exhausted but no closer to an answer. I called in sick to work, something I had never done, and sat at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee. Ryan texted again, offering to come over, but I told him I needed space to think. The ultimatum hung over me like a storm cloud. Lose Ryan and keep the family that had shaped every part of who I was, or lose them and step into a world where I could finally breathe. I didn't know which path scared me more. Word count, 10:23. The next morning brought the call I had been dreading. My mother's voice on the phone was soft at first, laced with the same concern she used when I was a kid with a fever. Your father told me everything, Ethan. He's worried sick. We both are. I gripped the phone tighter, standing in my kitchen with the city noise filtering through the open window. Ryan had stayed away as I asked, but his last text still glowed on my screen. Take all the time you need. I love you. Those 3 words had kept me from falling apart last night. Mom didn't yell. That almost made it worse. She talked about the family values they had instilled, the church picnics, the way my grandfather had built the hardware store from nothing. This isn't you, honey. It's a phase, maybe confusion from the big city. Come home for the weekend. We'll talk it through. I could hear my sister in the background asking what was wrong, and my father's muffled voice telling her to give me space. The pressure built with every gentle suggestion. They weren't monsters. They were the people who had loved me through every scraped knee and bad report card. How could I throw that away? I met my best friend Marcus for lunch at our usual deli downtown. He had been the only person who knew about Ryan from the beginning, the straight ally who covered for us during office parties. Dude, this is heavy, he said, sliding a sandwich across the table. But you've been living half a life. Ryan makes you happy in a way I've never seen. His words echoed my own thoughts, but the guilt gnawed deeper. I told him about the ultimatum, the weak deadline, the way my father's eyes had looked at me like I was a stranger. Marcus listened without judgment, offering to drive me to Indiana if I needed backup. Family's important, but so is being true to yourself. You can't live for them forever. That afternoon, I drove to the lakefront alone, the same spot where Ryan and I had our first real date. The wind off Lake Michigan whipped my hair as I replayed every milestone. The night Ryan cooked pasta after my big presentation fail. The weekend we spent in a cabin up north pretending we were just friends on a guy's trip. The small ways he showed love, remembering my coffee order, texting good morning even when we were both swamped. Hiding it had started to feel like betrayal, not protection. But the thought of my mom's disappointed face, my sister's confused questions, my dad's silent anger, it tore at me. By evening, Ryan came over despite my earlier request. We sat on the couch, not touching at first, the space between us heavy with everything unsaid. I don't want to force your hand, he said quietly, his teacher's patience shining through. But I can't keep being your secret forever. It's killing us both. His words hit hard. I had asked him to wait to understand the family pressure, but 3 years was enough. We talked for hours about the future we had whispered about late at night. Maybe adopting kids someday, traveling to places where no one knew us. The misunderstanding came when I hesitated too long. Ryan stood up, hurt flashing in his eyes. If you need to choose them, I'll understand. It'll break me, but I'll understand. He left before I could reply, leaving me alone with the ultimatum ticking like a bomb. That night I called my sister. She was crying before I even finished explaining. You're still my brother, Ethan. But Dad says you have to fix this. Mom's not sleeping. The betrayal stung. Not from her, but from the family dynamic that made my truth a problem to solve. I lay awake until dawn, the internal crisis deepening. Who was I without their approval? The successful designer they bragged about, or the man who loved another man and wanted a life that felt honest? The choice loomed larger, and for the first time, the small voice inside grew louder. Maybe love wasn't the thing I had to sacrifice. Word count, 998. The family meeting happened 3 days later in a neutral coffee shop near the airport, my mother flying in early to mediate. My father sat rigid, arms crossed, while Mom reached across the table to hold my hand. We love you, Ethan. That's why this hurts so much. My sister had come too, eyes wide and uncertain. The conversation started civil, but quickly turned. My father brought up the church, the neighbors back home who would talk, the family business that relied on community trust. What about your future? Kids? A real life? Each question chipped away at my resolve. Ryan waited outside in his car as I had asked, giving me space. But when my uncle, my father's brother, showed up unannounced, the misunderstanding escalated. He had overheard the phone call and driven from Indiana, face red with anger. This is disgraceful. You're throwing everything away for some phase. His words spread like fire, and I felt the betrayal cut deep. He called my boss later that day, leaving a voicemail that somehow reached HR through office gossip. The rumor mill at work started turning, subtle questions about my roommate. Ryan heard it first and confronted me that evening. They're making this public now. How much more are you willing to lose? The breaking point came that night in my apartment. My father called, voice steady but final. The week is almost up. Choose. I looked at Ryan across the room, the man who had stood by me through every crisis. The decision crystallized in a rush of clarity. I choose him, Dad. I choose me. The line went silent, then dead. Ryan pulled me into his arms as I broke down, the sacrifice immediate and raw. My phone buzzed with texts from my sister, hurt, confused, but also one from Marcus. Proud of you, man. The consequences hit fast. My father cut the monthly support I had relied on for rent. Work became tense with sideways glances. But for the first time, the weight lifted. I had chosen love, and the world didn't end. It just shifted. Word count, 1012. Starting over meant facing the practical fallout head-on. I moved some things to Ryan's place the next weekend, the 2-bedroom apartment suddenly feeling like home in a way mine never had. Financially, things tightened fast. No more help from home meant picking up extra freelance gigs after my 9 to 5, sketching logos late into the night while Ryan graded papers at the kitchen table. We'll figure it out, he said one evening, sliding a plate of takeout toward me. His support was steady, but the strain showed in small ways. Missed dinners, quiet arguments about money. Societal pressure crept in too. At the gym, a guy from my old neighborhood recognized me and made a comment under his breath. I ignored it, but the sting lingered. Ryan faced it at school when a parent questioned his lifestyle after word spread through community networks. We leaned on each other more, but a misunderstanding nearly broke us when I suggested we slow down on public outings. Are you still ashamed? Ryan asked, voice tight. It took hours of honest talk to rebuild trust. I realized my growth meant owning every part of us, not hiding anymore. My best friend Marcus helped by introducing us to his circle, a mix of colleagues and neighbors who welcomed us without question. Small victories came, a weekend hike where we held hands openly, a dinner party where we were just another couple. The internal awakening grew. I started therapy, unpacking the guilt that had defined me for years. The family's silence hurt most. My mother sent a card on my birthday, no return address, words of love mixed with sadness. My sister texted sporadically, torn between loyalties. I sacrificed the easy comfort of their approval, but gained a strength I never knew I had. Chicago felt bigger, brighter, full of possibility. Word count, 987. The crisis peaked 6 months later when Ryan's school faced budget cuts and his contract hung in the balance. The stress amplified old fears. One night, he came home exhausted, questioning if our choice had been worth the upheaval. "Maybe your dad was right about stability," he said, the words slipping out in frustration. The misunderstanding cut deep. I thought he regretted us. I spent the night on the couch, replaying every sacrifice, every late bill, every awkward family holiday we now spent alone. But community support pulled us through. Marcus organized a fundraiser at work, colleagues donating to help with Ryan's legal fees for contract renewal. A new friend from therapy group shared stories of similar journeys, reminding me I wasn't alone. I faced societal prejudice head-on at a family friend's wedding invitation that arrived with a note. "Just you." I declined, but wrote back honestly, explaining my truth. The act of writing freed something inside. Ryan and I talked it out the next morning, forgiveness flowing easily after years of building trust. "We're stronger together," he said. The awakening solidified. I applied for a promotion that would mean more stability and got it. My sister called out of the blue, saying Mom had been asking about me. Partial softening came slowly, but it was there. The new life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, authentic, full of love and hard-won peace. Word count, 1004. A year later, the city lights of Chicago sparkled from our new balcony as Ryan and I toasted to the future. The hardware store back home had passed my cousin, but my mother had started sending holiday cards again, signed with love. My sister visited once, hugging Ryan like a brother. The partial reconciliation wasn't the fairy tale ending, but it was real progress born from my choice. I had grown into someone who no longer needed their validation to breathe. Work thrived, Ryan's teaching contract renewed, and we talked about building a life with maybe fostering someday. The journey had tested every part of me. Confrontations, misunderstandings, betrayals from those closest, sacrifices of comfort and security. But each step led to this, a man who loved openly, who had awakened to his own worth. Ryan pulled me close under the stars. We made it. Yes, we had. The path from that slammed door to here had been painful, but it opened everything. True or false? Family should always come before romantic love, no matter what.